Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today's webinar theme is a good one. We're going to be talking about From Post-Peak to Profit, a shipping roadmap for 2025. So let's start with giving everyone some valuable background for who will be here with us, sharing their insights for the discussion. I'm Katie Schradel. I'm Content Marketing Manager here at ProShip. I've been here for 4 years, and as someone who doesn't have anywhere near the supply chain experience of the next speaker, I'm looking forward to our discussion today. Justin, welcome back. Tell us about your experience and a little bit more about ProShip.
Sure. Thank you for introducing me. Thank you for having me. As many of you know, I've been in the logistics industry and small parcel for the past 25 years. And I've had the privilege of being able to work on some of the largest systems we have, all the way down to some of the smallest systems we have, from just a few hundred packages a day to exceeding 1 million packages a day. For those of you who don't know what ProShip does, we are a small parcel shipment execution platform. So we help gather information from your enterprise software stack, apply your business rules, which could be cost savings as well, and provide the appropriate carrier documentation so that you can ship as many packages as possible per unit time, ensuring that not only are your customers happy, but maintaining a expected band for your logistics spend to keep your accountants happy as well. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, Jeremy, we'll jump over to you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been in retail operations with a couple other companies for a little over a decade, and then with Macy's for a few years in store operations as well, transitioning to Macy's Tech in the summer of 21, and then in the shipping domain with our supply chain, small parcel, shortly after 21 and 22, and working with ProShip on many initiatives that we have.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. All right, Sherry, let's hear a little bit about Veterans United and your role there.
Hi, thanks for having me. I am the procurement manager here at Veterans United, and I'm new to this role, but I've been here for about 9 years. And my team focuses mostly on the shipping and receiving for our customers as well as our employees. So we have a little bit of both sides.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. We'll get started here. Before we dive deeper into the key strategies for success in 2025, let's set the stage a little bit. Justin, can you share your perspective on key trends and challenges that you see facing supply chains today?
Sure. And I think I have to use the buzzword that we've been using since 2020, which is volatility. Though the mechanisms of that volatility are a little bit different today than they were back in 2020. Back then it was capacity driven. Now, in some cases, we kind of have a little too much capacity. However, Postmaster General DeJoy has been executing his Plan for America and Plan for America 2, changing the way the United States Post Office works, which has had some very strong ripple effects across some of the major carriers we're used to dealing with on a daily basis. And at the same time, we're starting to see the beginnings of expansions for some of the carriers that came up during the pandemic. We're starting to see some combining of carriers, and we are also starting to see a couple of carriers exit the market. Combine that with an ever-changing need for consumers as well as for business consumption of shipped packages. And really what we see is that the need for highly flexible systems and a lot of clean data exchanges throughout an enterprise software stack. Katie?
Yeah. And Jeremy, from Macy's perspective, how has the retail landscape specifically evolved in recent years? What are some of the big challenges you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I'd really say the speed to customer, number one, the expansion of different options of carriers, different service levels that they provide, all keeping shipping costs in line. I think those are some of the biggest opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Sherry, is there anything you want to add there, or should we keep rolling along here? Sorry,
Sure,
Sherry, I think we've got you on mute.
I'm so sorry. I just agreed that
No,
yes,
that's
the speed is probably the biggest thing for us as well. It's made a big impact.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Thanks for helping us understand where we are. Now let's shift our focus a little bit to the role of technology in addressing those challenges. Sherry, at Veterans United, how important is technology in navigating the complex supply chain today?
So it's pretty big for us. We have a lot of technology that helps us with our entire process. But as far as the shipping and receiving, which is what I deal with, just having that that like instant notification of like where packages are has helped us a ton. The speed. So for us, we have upgraded our software, so we now have a program where we can scan everything that we have coming into us, which is the majority of what we do. And then we can tell people where it's at, who we delivered it to. So that's been a huge plus for us. And then as well as using ProShip, it's helped with being able to compare costs and shipping times all in one place rather than us only being able to use UPSs, which is what the majority of what we did when I started. But now we utilize multiple carriers, and just the time and cost that it saved us being able to price shop and, choose the carrier we want and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know we had a question come in prior to the Q&A about rate shopping. So we'll touch a little bit more on that near the end of the presentation. But Justin, from your perspective, what are the most critical technology integrations for businesses who are looking to optimize in 2025?
Oh, clearly, if we're talking technologies, we're talking about modern consumable APIs. We're talking about leveraging those in the appropriate separation of concerns. What I mean by this is your orders are all in your ERP. Your inventory is all in an OMS or a WMS as necessary. By having easy means of communication with these APIs, combining that with knowing where to go to get the data, so you don't get part of the inventory data in one system and part of it in another, right? This makes things significantly easier as we start to create these workflows for you to be able to have them make sense, make them fast, so that you can get the most use out of a shipping station operator. Or if you're going to do automation, we can put the most automated packages through that very expensive conveyor line as possible.
And Justin, how does ROI fit into that piece? How does return on investment tie to this supply chain technology?
Well, it all comes down to what both of them mentioned in the prior question, which is speed, right? As we look at how many packages we can get out of a given origin per day, a lot of that comes with how easy it is to get the information through the system, right? If we have to wait for an operator to hand type it, an operator is I mean, even me, I've been driving a keyboard for the last 40 years now. Even I can't type faster than the software can actually reach out and grab it from something else, right? So with that, if we really want to truly have speed and we want to use the human brains we have available to do what they do best, we don't want the operator typing in addresses, typing in weights, typing in contents, right? We want to pull that from the systems where they already exist. We want to automatically feed it into the carrier engines to find out which one is the lowest cost. And we want to do that so quickly that the operator isn't impeded in their workflow in that process, okay? Because what's the operator supposed to be doing? They're supposed to be ensuring that that box looks like it deserves to come from our organization. They're supposed to be making sure its contents are well fit. They're supposed to be doing that quality control, which really gives to that final experience that we're going to enforce with the shipping software. So when I get something, not only is it when I expect to get it, which is really important, but it also looks like a professional company sent it to me. And that latter part, ProShip can't really help you with that, right? But we'll give you the appropriate label so it gets there at the right time. Your people, because they're not burdened with all those other details, they're the ones that are going to be actually doing that visual QA, making sure that things look the way they do. And I also wanted to expand upon something from the last question, and I don't see a good spot to do it, so I'm just going to stick it in right here. There was mention about speed, and I think that what we've noticed as we've gone through the end of the year trade shows last year and the beginning of the year trade shows this year is that over the next 18 months, we're going to see a different way to be fast. And that is actual same-day shippers. And I don't mean using them for actual same day. I mean using them for next day deliveries, especially for like a large retailer that may have stores all over the place. What we're seeing is that the DoorDashes, the Go Locals, these contenders, if you will, that started for the sheer purpose of the gotta have it now experience, they're moving to the sub $10 next day execution in that local area. So all of a sudden we're going to see, and in this case, volatility isn't a bad word. We're going to see these carriers competing with the national carriers based upon where your inventory is. So as we look at that, again, this is about pulling all that data. It comes down to pulling that data and then asking the question over to the shipping software, it responding very quickly with all those options. And so if you choose to add some of these carriers that now have that are used that we know for same day delivery that now offer next day delivery, which is really where a lot of the expectation is, we can do that at that sub $10 opportunity. And I'm not going to get into negotiation. That's not what we do, but be able to do that at such a relatively low price, potentially even compared to ground at a zone 2 or zone 3 level. So just something that everybody should think about.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Justin. And Jeremy, at Macy's, you guys deal with a massive scale of operations. How does Macy's leverage technology to optimize their shipping process? And then if you want to share any key lessons that you've learned in the past that you're pulling forward to 2025.
Yeah, first I was hoping we could go back to Justin's typing speed and just revisit that a little bit longer.
I'm slow. I'm sorry.
Me too. I don't know if I could out-type the computer in speed. I'm not giving it to it fast enough. But really for us, multi-carrier rate shopping and having as much granularity to controls as we can to really optimize to business needs as possible. Like wherever possible, have those tools at our disposal, as well as being proactive, auditing, alerting for services and servers. That's what we have come out of this last peak as a takeaway. It's really being proactive, monitoring your systems, making sure that everything is functioning as you expect it to be, because in the world of shipping, you may have shipped thousands of units until you discover an issue, and that can cost you a lot of money, or it can cost you a lot of time and disappointment with your customers if you're not rating and routing correctly and meeting commitments. So we stay proactive with that.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Now we will jump to the next category that is kind of the unknown here, the inevitable. So the unexpected. Sherry, given the current economic climate, how is Veterans United preparing for any potential disruptions in the supply chain coming this year?
I found some web results. I can show them if you ask again.
Sorry, Sherry, I think you're on mute again. We can't hear you.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Okay,
that's all right.
So for us, most of our shipments are time sensitive. Getting paperwork to our borrowers so they can close on their loan, or to the title company, or vice versa. So we just try to, keep a good ear up to what's going on. And if we think that there's going to be any disruptions, like when UPS was maybe going to go on strike, trying to plan ahead for, okay, how are we going to ship the stuff we normally send through UPS, things like that. We just try to loop in everybody that's involved and let them know, this could be delayed, or plan, give yourself extra time if you can, when you set up your closing, that sort of thing. As far as our other shipments, through our employees and stuff, that is pretty flexible, but we still try to just make sure we plan ahead and ship when we can. But a lot of it's out of our hands, so we just do the best we can with what we have. So.
Yeah. And Justin, from a technology perspective, what advice would you give to businesses facing potential disruptions, whether that's, carrier issues, labor shortages, any of the volatility you mentioned earlier?
Well, hopefully you're already looking at some of those things now and starting to work with your vendors. Okay, that's probably my first thing, is the tech is probably capable or is there for you if you work with your vendor to determine some of the things you might do. So, for example, right now the biggest thing hitting the news is international tariffs. Are you receiving or sending goods overseas? If you are, you probably want to be talking with your vendor with your vendors on how you might want to have to react. Okay, we've already seen this with some of our customers, especially those who are shipping to the greater North American market, and they've made some changes already in conjunction with us, right? But really, as we're looking at all of this, one of the things that we're trying to ensure is that we haven't written anything that will make it difficult for you to change, that will make it difficult for you to add another carrier, remove a carrier because they're no longer useful. Maybe add, if you're an international shipper, add a landed cost module through somebody like Flavor Cloud, right? There's all of these things that can be done, but I think the last thing you want to do is have to have less than 30 days to be able to get it done. Can we help you? Of course we can. Will the result be better if we're looking at more like a 3-month window to actually truly get the questions answered, and not only use our technology, use your WMSs, your ERPs, your e-commerce suites technology to help with all of this, but also the carrier's technology as well. See what they're coming out with and be able to more properly take time to match rather than get a slight alignment that you might have.
And Justin, I want to do a little tangent really quick and talk about one of your favorite topics, which is AI, and how AI can talk about, the unpredictable, the predictable, what's the difference there? How does AI fit into this conversation a little bit?
And I have to go with my AI phrase in a box to start with, and that if it can be properly calculated, it should be, and that's not AI. If there's probabilities, that is where AI comes into play, because AI can really take probabilities and look at a lot of those things. So here's where maybe your sourcing solution, if somebody's offering you an AI piece, it may be more useful there. For where you distribute things across the country, if you have more than one location that you're shipping from, AI may be helpful in order to make sure that things like that happen. Especially when it comes to picking, this is where I think that the AI really is eventually going to make major changes, because that ties into those labor concerns. The reality is if you put me in a warehouse, my first few weeks, I'm going to be horrible and slow. By the time I get to my 6th or 7th week, I'm probably shooting through there real fast. On the other hand, maybe I make a friend there. And whenever that guy's working, both of our productivities drop, right? It could happen that way, right? And so here's where AI, because of all these probabilities, start to come into play. It makes it a lot easier for something to look at the history that you've got, look at, combine that with its training, right? And really put those probabilities together to try to figure out how to take those probabilistic items and twist them to your advantage. Okay. And I just see AI is at its infancy. We see it already moving towards a next phase. I'm not going to call it a phase 2.0, because really, if we go back to machine learning, it had several phases, and that's the grandfather of AI that we're using now, right? But we're moving into a phase now where we're specializing AI to a specific task. People are calling this they're calling it agents or the agentification of AI. And what we're seeing is really that rather than having this all-encompassing Skynet, what we are seeing is something that's very good at one piece of your business. Okay. And that agent will help with that one piece of your business. And maybe the agents eventually will communicate with one another. But if you realistically think about how that can happen, if when you're talking with your other vendors who can use AI or do have AI components, okay, that's a great thing to think about. This is a probability. Do you have an agent that can help me with this probability? And we've seen our partners come up with a lot of that. Now, in the shipping world, there's only one right answer for the cost of a shipment. Okay. There's only one right answer for a proper label. And there's only one right answer to communicate that to the carrier. So far as we look at this bigger picture in the shipping software, there is really one spot that we're expecting AI to affect us. And that is after it leaves the building. Okay. After it leaves the building, tons of probabilities happen between it hitting that carrier trailer and it hitting somebody's front door or goes to another business or something of that nature. And that's where we're expecting that carriers, third parties, and maybe even customers are going to leverage AI to send us time in transits that really help to adjust their expectations, adjust their customers' expectations to the reality that we're seeing in the market. And I think that that's going to be a really powerful use for AI. And I think that the rest of it, the other uses are going to be outside of the shipping world. And then the final thing, I'm sorry, I've got to go back to labor because I do think that this is a decade of labor. Automation is your way to do the best job of leveraging the labor that you have. In the event that you find yourself in a labor shortage, the more automation you have, the more likely you'll be able to get whatever labor you have to do the most. So think about that. Think about how much effort how much hand typing your labor is doing, how much manual movement your labor is doing versus how much human stuff are they doing, as I mentioned before in the quality control piece.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Justin. Jeremy, we'll go to you. How is Macy's kind of adapting to this unpredictability that we've been talking about and the evolving landscape and its impact on the supply chain?
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Skynet reference. I did enjoy Skynet. Thank you. Really focused on shipping compliance. The evolving landscape, as I'm sure many know, has evolved right under our feet post-Christmas with a SurePost don't ship it no more type of call out, and we had to adapt. And a lot of us had to do that. So now you have to be compliant and, again, keep your bottom line in mind. And we all know that we don't want to succumb to non-compliance when it relates to hazmat shipping. So really, that's been a recent challenge.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Can I follow up on that one real quick?
Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. I think that you mentioned something that I've because we tried generally not to call out our partners too much, but let's be realistic. If you're using SurePost or were using SurePost, that was not the way I think anybody in the logistics world wanted that to come down. So as I mentioned earlier, now's the time to plan with your vendors. I would say those of you who've been affected by the SurePost issues, that's a great example of not planning with your vendors, not communicating well with everybody. And it left a lot of us with less than 12 hours of notice, moving very, very quickly at a time when everything was supposed to be very locked down. So that's a negative example of not great communication, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Well, we will move from this unpredictability onto some more infrastructure. So talking about what modern shippers should have to get ahead in 2025. Justin, what are the key components of a modern future-proof supply chain tech stack?
That's a great question. And I'm going to go back to, and this is a very technical beginning answer, but hopefully I will make it less technical as I go along. I got to start with separation of concerns. Okay. And this is often easier to do at the enterprise level than it is at the SMB level. Okay. Because often when you're an SMB, you've got just one piece of it, one application to do everything. And as companies grow and transition into mid-size and large businesses, I think the key that they always have to look at is as based on their business, where is the real separation of concerns and how do they order that migration from, let's say I'm doing everything on Shopify and maybe I throw in Salesforce.com in there as well, all the way to what we see with some of the largest enterprise stacks with a dedicated ERP, dedicated OMS, point of sale, dedicated WMS, and then dedicated shipping software. So that latter part there, that is where you'd love to go. But even when you're over on the other end of the spectrum, understand that you're trying to separate these items from one another. And so that as you move forward, you know that honestly, inventory and the shipping application aren't really supposed to mix, right? Because the inventory should be controlled by the inventory location. And that's just one example. The reality is that there are a lot of companies out there that can help you move these directions. But I say, work again. It's work with your vendors. It's that communication piece that I keep harping on here. And I'm not saying that you have to go and buy the two largest companies out there, that you have to own an IBM mainframe in order to get your ERP on it or anything like that. There are scalable solutions to every single one of these sections of the enterprise software stack that one wants to build in the long term. And this is where a good, like we have partners in every single level that we can help share with. But we're going to be very clear that that's not what we do. That's really the way a good partnership should run. In that your vendor may be able to recommend others because they have their own separation of concerns and are very good at the box that they do. Right. And of course, I'm going to call it a box because, well, that's all I do is put labels on boxes.
Use bags too. Poly bags. Don't be poly bags.
Yeah, you're right. Poly bags and things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Justin, do you see any of those major components that are separated right now? Do you see any of those changing in the near future, or any of them going to become more important as we navigate the kind of unpredictable disruptions we've been talking about?
In the last decade, what I have seen is where an OMS was an ambiguous, not well separated item, to now an OMS or OMS features that ability to see inventory across all inventory sources really has become a way to save money, improve customer experience, and really just take companies to another level, especially when you combine it with a small parcel shipping software that can help make decisions on whether or not we pull from a local small inventory source like a store, or we pull from a large inventory source maybe a couple of zones away like a DC, right? So I would say, look, if you really haven't been watching the market for the last decade, an OMS is a well fleshed out piece of software that we're seeing nowadays, pairs well with shipping software, and really does a lot to affect the customer experience and maximize your a retailer especially maximize the use of your inventory as best possible.
Awesome. All right. And we will move on to our next section here. We can't talk about the future without talking about cost control. So Jeremy, I think we'll start with you. What strategies is Macy's implementing to reduce shipping costs and improve profitability in 2025?
Coupons from the carrier, of course. Shipping coupons, they offer them in many fashions. Really trying to collaborate with the carriers to achieve discounts. Many carriers, if you enter an agreement with them, may offer a rebate if you do some strategic partnerships. So looking to utilize those types of ability for a rebate is one way to impact cost. I mean, the other one is just straightforward multi-carrier rate shopping, finding the most cost-effective carrier to get the package to your customer on time, and do it through several channels. Like Justin was mentioning, you may use a DC, or if your enterprise is large and you have stores and different inventory assortments to leverage that may be closer to the customer, you may have to consider split shipments or a number of different probabilities, right, that have your little AI buddy help you out with. But ultimately, that's it. You got to find the most cost-effective solution to get the package to the customer on time. And before on time is real nice too, but you always got to keep that cost in mind.
Mm-hmm. And Jeremy, you talked about multi-carrier shipping there. Have you guys seen, just from 2024 to 2025, changes in your, like, the number of carriers that you guys are using? Is that kind of a cost control measure for you? Is that anything that's changed?
Well, in my role, I'm in product management for supply chain, small parcel, and we always have conversations about carriers. My stakeholders always presenting another carrier. What's it going to take to integrate? Let's have a discussion with them. They're offering a rate card. I need to consider it. While keeping in mind, if you have contractual agreements with your current carriers, you may owe them a certain amount of volume to get that contracted rate. So you got to keep those kind of things in mind. But we're always having discussions about different ways to skin the cat, right? We all have to get there somehow. And like Justin alluded to earlier, there's so many carriers available to us now, and so many carriers that were not your traditional parcel carriers of the past, like UPS, FedEx, DHL. You got to think outside of the poly bag. I want to say box, but really, you got to think outside the poly bag and explore other solutions that get you that same outcome and can impact your costs. So there's a lot of carriers out there.
Yeah. And Justin, I'll go to you. So what are some of the cost saving measures that businesses can implement, talking about short term, long term? What are you seeing? Any tools there?
Number one, let's face it, rate shopping. Jeremy touched on it straight off the bat, right? If you're not, and even rate shopping within a carrier, we have seen some medical companies save 8% their first year just by letting the shipping software say, okay, I need it here on Friday. Well, the origin is Chicago, the destination is Milwaukee. A ground shipment gets it there next day, saving you 60% over an express shipment, right? And unless it falls in some other rules, it should go ground, right? That's exactly why you got the technology stack. Also, a warning: if you are writing, or if you're having your shipping software vendor write carrier-specific rules, what you are doing is you are binding yourself to that carrier. It's that much more difficult to add a tertiary carrier, try another carrier. So as you create these business rules, as you create the way you're rate shopping, some of the hard-coded fast rules that you need, try to make those general. Try to say, okay, in this case, now we're going to shop our ground group, or we're going to shop our diamond versus gold versus platinum group, right? So you're working more in groups rather than, in this case, I'm going to do a DHL business rule. In this case, I'm going to do a postal business rule, right? So by going to these groups of rules rather than carrier specific rules, what this means is if all of a sudden you're like, here I've been shipping with the United States Post Office, been shipping with UPS in order to fulfill my PO box orders, and I can't do that. But so now I need to very rapidly switch gears, drop a postal provider in there, okay? Because I haven't done UPS specific rules, instead I've done PO box, APO, FPO rules, okay? All of a sudden that becomes a couple hour event once you get your contract, okay? So that's really where technology and business rules comes together in order to either make that difficult experience as smooth as possible, or make it a bloody mess, because we're going to have to rip out a bunch of prior logic. And it's going to look like confetti in a teenager's bedroom, right? It's just going to be everywhere. It's going to be ugly, right? But if we've written it nice and clean, if we've written it so that we can add a carrier at any point in time, okay, because we've got group-centric rules rather than carrier-centric rules, all of a sudden the technology becomes, I won't say it makes it good, because let's face it, when that volatility hits the market, it's not good. It makes it less bad. That's really what we're going for.
Yeah.
So,
really staying agile. And it sounds like you were just explaining ProShip rate shop groups. It really sounded.
Yeah. No, I am. But there's a lot of other things that we see people try to cram all the way in there. And let's face it, the concept of a rate shop group has been around since the late 90s. Okay. I think it's more allowing a customer to grow in their thought process around how to use those concepts. That really is something that a good vendor should be trying to do with you, because of the fact that it gives us better opportunities during times of volatility to make that volatility create the least amount of pain possible. But also, let's say we're just talking that normal annual cycle, right? We're about to touch February. February is communication month. February is where we're going to be calling up all of our customers going, hey, what are you doing for 2025? How can we help you? Have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? We've just gone to some of the largest trade shows in the nation. Here's what everybody's talking about. If you that annual cycle where you plan in February, you start executing in Q2, please Q2, sometimes Q3, we can usually get you there. We'd rather start in Q2. Anyways, as you go through that, you're testing in Q3, you're live in Q4, right? That's a normal cycle, right? And having these group level rules, the non-carrier specific rules, that helps that process as well, makes that really smooth, makes that a good thing, right? On the other hand, it makes these volatile things, which can be very painful, minimizes that pain as much as possible. So it helps you both in the immediate response as well as the long-term business as usual. This is how we improve the process and the product every year.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sherry, what are you guys seeing on your end, and what are you guys doing at Veterans United?
Sorry, you cut out there. I don't have my microphone muted this time. So I agree with Jeremy, like basically the same information. We try to keep, and we're a much smaller scale, so that makes a big difference, but just try to maintain those relationships with our carriers. And what we send out, we don't use a lot of these smaller ones. We use pretty much FedEx, UPS, Post Office. But it is something I will look into and see if any of those other carriers are an option. But since we ship things to borrowers, like I said, usually it's overnight. So there's not a lot of options because we want to make sure they get it in time for their closing, signing their documents and that sort of thing. So, but that's a lot of it is just, rate shopping, trying to negotiate what we can, volume or whatever it is, doing the FedEx one rate or that sort of thing. But pretty much the same thing and on a much smaller scale than what Jeremy has. So
yeah. Awesome. And Justin, I feel like we can't leave this section without talking a little bit about carrier volume balancing. Do you want to maybe talk through that concept and how that can help with cost control?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. I had it mentally in there because it was a perfect response to some of the stuff that that Jeremy was talking about.
My
But
ears
unfortunately,
perked up. That's one of my.
So as a matter of fact, Jeremy said, he said, sometimes we still have a commitment to an existing carrier. Okay. And when you look at carrier volume balancing, this isn't a difficult concept. Again, you bias towards a carrier that you have a minimum requirement with. If you get too far away from that requirement, you literally don't look at the other carriers. You just shop within that carrier. Okay. And I think there's an important distinction there, because if the carrier is winning enough volume with just through natural rate shopping, let's let it happen. Because that saves you as the shipper the most money. Okay. And the less we spend on logistics, the more we can spend on everything else. Right. So by having a flexible carrier volume balancing technology, one that's mature and allows for that unbiased, biased away, biased towards type of situation, not only do we allow ourselves to onboard a new carrier, we also allow ourselves to onboard a new carrier and limit the amount of shipments that they get. We say, we only want to give you 1,000 packages a day, right? Because this is a proof of concept, right? And so you're only going to bring a certain size small truck there. We can't give you a 48-foot trailer worth of packages because you're not going to be able to get them away from our dock. So again, carrier volume balancing can work from both ends. It can ensure that we can do a great proof of concept by not overloading a carrier at a specific origin. It can ensure that we keep our existing goals as much as possible with another carrier, and any combination thereof, and being able to work with the carriers to figure out what that needs to be. That really makes it so that, especially in high volume days, we can maximize the overall savings for a given customer expectation. Because I like to think about it that way. We're not spending any of this money for the sake of the carriers. We're spending this money on the sake of meeting a customer's delivery expectation, right? Because hopefully when we meet that expectation, when it shows up on time, that customer is like, this is a great company. I'm going to do business with them again, right? And that's why we really care about that expectation, is so that we can get that return business over and over and over again. What's that worth to us? I'm not going to get into that level of detail because, quite frankly, I'm not qualified for that. But what I do know is that when you tell a good shipping software the expectation, when you tell it how to make that customer happy, our job is to do it at the lowest cost possible, right? And rules like carrier volume balancing, date shopping, advanced date shopping, all these other things that we've spent years, kind of like chefs, taking these dishes, taking rate shopping and cutting it apart into dissecting it into the various components that make it, so we can understand each component and find where to make it better. Okay. This is what a good shipping software should be doing for you, so that you've got all of these various components, which really are there to address that combination of expectation versus cost. And that's all this really does is that juxtaposition of expectation versus logistics cost.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Hey.
Jeremy, was there anything you wanted to add there? Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add there, another unique implementation of carrier volume balancing is to force volume to a carrier. So not just as a cap, but running a negative rule. And what that allows you to do is, Justin was alluding to maybe a proof of concept. So in a proof of concept, you might need to force some volume to a carrier, and you're not going to go in and change your rate card and mess with billing, but you could add a negative surcharge that makes that new carrier you're testing with win the rate shop time and time again, and now you're forcing a volume to them so you can prove that out. And then on the other side, right, you doing caps. Sometimes there's daily and weekly caps with a carrier, and you get surcharged beyond that cap, and CBB is a tool that allows you to stay under that cap, so you're not getting those surcharges at the different volume tiers.
You mentioned something about markup, markdown, and all I'll say is put a pin in markup, markdown. You'll see more in this space later.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are to our Q&A section. So we've had a couple questions come in, but there's still time for a couple more. So if you've got your question, you're holding it, please submit that now. This has been a great discussion so far. So we will jump into the first question. This is from Kimberly, can you review logistics management software and how carrier rate shopping actually works?
Okay, so carrier rate shopping sounds like the simplest thing in the world. And in some ways it is. But it's that way only because 20 years ago, 25 years ago, getting old, 25 years ago now, this was right as a lot of the surcharges were being added. This is when fuel surcharge was being added. We as a logistics industry decided to define total as the amount that accounting will pay. Okay. So now that we've got this, it's very simple. A basic rate shop, as we call it, is just taking the amount of each service level and sorting to find the lowest cost. Now you can make that a little bit more complicated by going ahead and filtering by time in transit. I only want to use services that will hit this origin destination pair in 3 days. Okay. There might be an express service in there. You're probably going to get multiple carriers, ground services in there. And if they won't meet it, they're going to be pulled out by that filter, right? You still have that basic sort of what's the lowest cost beginning and end. And in advanced rate shopping, this is where we go from just 2 factors to 9 factors, okay? And I'm not going to go through all 9 of them. Needless to say, advanced rate shopping, which is the most complicated form of rate shopping we're aware of in the market, takes into account the realities of the movement itself. So here we are on a Wednesday. If we're doing a 2-day shipment, it'll be delivered by Friday. I don't know of any holidays between now and Friday, but let's say tomorrow is Thanksgiving, okay? It's Thanksgiving. If it's right now, it's 2:47 Eastern, okay? I probably still have all my carriers available. If it's 6:47 Eastern, it may actually be Friday for some of my carriers. So advanced rate shopping takes that into account. Then once it's moving, do things transmit on that Thursday? Are they actually going to move a day closer? Takes that into account. Then finally, once it's made it to the final sort facility, is it actually going to be deliverable that day? The United States Post Office transits 7 days a week, okay? But it only delivers most packages 6 days a week, okay? And well, with joy, who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? But that's kind of the thing. So now we need to, if it got there on a Sunday, for the United States Post Office, we need to move it one more day to a Monday to get it delivered. So advanced rate shopping just takes all parts of the shipment journey into account to ensure that we really, really enforce that customer expectation. And that is really the key to rate shopping. I might have gotten a little technical there. Does anybody want to follow up with something a little less 25 years in the industry tech guy?
I use advanced date shopping on Fridays with my wife. Hey, there you go. I was listening in on all of the 9 factors that it calculates, and I mean that's the crux of it, right? It's what's your pull time? When's the carrier picking up? When do they induct? When's the package due by? When are they moving it? Is there a holiday? I don't know why you would even curse and say Thanksgiving right now after we just got out of peak, but I'll give you a pass, buddy. Taking all those
everybody could relate to it right now. In 3 months, you won't care anymore. That's
I know.
the problem.
No, 3 months from now, I'll be like, don't you start already. Like, don't start talking about it yet. Just taking all those things into consideration, I think for some of us, we may have been doing that on our side. And a big piece of what ProShip offers is I want to let you calculate it. You run the numbers. I'm going to tell you when I need it there by. We're going to tell you all the costs for all the carriers and all the service levels. You tell me what one is the most viable to get it there on time, because there's so many different calculations to run there, right? And ADS really helps do that for us.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right, next question that was submitted. Let's see. Russell said, how should shippers navigate the changes to UPS SurePost Ground Saver? So I know we touched on this a little bit. Is there anything else we want to add here?
I want to say keep your eyes open, because this is a large action in the market, and there will be a reaction from other carriers and from the two carriers involved as well. So this is not done yet. This is the rumble before Mount St. Helens. There we go. Erupts. There we go.
All right. Yeah, no, I reached out to one of my contacts, and he said his response was something to the point of, I'm not trying to dodge the question, but there's more to come. Because I was trying to understand what is the change here with SurePost. And, to navigate that as a retailer, we still have to get our packages out to our customer. Our customer doesn't know about the SurePost change, nor do they care. They want to get that hazmat package delivered. They want to get that P.O. box package delivered. And we have to find an alternative to do that, whether that's offering them, say, a different location. If you're a retailer that offers a storefront, I could say, I can't get that package to your P.O. box, but would you be willing to come to one of our stores and pick it up? Because now I can ship it to my store without using SurePost, but I'm limited by the P.O. box aspect of it. Otherwise, you're going to manage USPS, and are you set up to do that yet with their hazmat requirements? So all those things to consider when pulling this lever.
Yeah, and there was a follow-up question here, which we can address some of it live. Some of it sounds like it might be better for a post discussion, but what would you have liked to hear from either A, UPS or B, USPS regarding the change? How much time did your teams need for your customers? And then what are the implications for ProShip and your customers of the short notice for this change?
Well, I'm going to put that second half on Jeremy. Jeremy, what was the implications for my customers for the short notice of that change?
Yeah, pretty significant, right? So something bigger than we are aware of had to have taken place. I can't imagine that UPS just came out of nowhere with it. And I wouldn't have expected a notification from the post office, right? Because it's really UPS running the mid-mile on this. And they're saying, hey, we've stopped handing off. We're not going to hand off any longer. And the impact was really having shipments in the pipeline that you'd have to cancel on customers that were intended to deliver where you're only utilizing that service, where that service was the only one applicable to run that package to post office. So we quickly had to react. And then you're talking about facilities. You're retraining people who may have been in a facility for several years. They're subject matter expert. They're telling their people, no, you got to update that shipping attribute, route it SurePost, because their package is jackpotting. That's not the answer anymore. They can't force it. So communicating to colleagues about the change is one of the big opportunities. And then making that systematic change to not allow it to select that service level for those shipments, and then finding the alternative. Those were all the hurdles.
I'm going to be more specific. I would have preferred 6 to 3 months notice for us to be able to change our
Yeah,
software.
absolutely. Yeah, well, notification
Change our
was great,
software,
but
update our customers, find customers who had SurePost specific business rules, revert them, all of these things, because this is normally the contract, that the handshake deal between a vendor like myself and the carriers. I can't be ready to communicate to customers. We can't use the power of Katie's team without with hours worth of notice. Okay.
right.
That being said, I will say in retrospect, there was some writing on the wall pointing towards this. Many of you may have remembered that Pitney Bowes they basically sold off half of their shipping product and killed it within a week. Okay. I thought that was short notice. In this case, hours notice is way less. I didn't expect that to happen. I think we all could see that something could happen with postal last mile options with all the carriers.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of us expected a sub 24-hour implementation and affect packages in flight implementation. But that is what it is. Luckily for most of our customers, that was a small amount of their in-flight packages, and we had a lot of good implementations in place with best way group driven business rules to enable fast options to help that. But this would be my fear if I were going to fearmonger volatility in the future. I would say that this is the worst case scenario, and it could happen again with other carriers, whether that be them going out of business, removing or adding services. So think about that worst case scenario as you're like, nah, I'm going to go the cheap route when I actually implement this particular business rule.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. Go ahead, Jeremy. Mm-hmm.
I was going to share the one perspective I shared with my team when we were navigating that is the reality of it may even be, since we don't know all the details to it, just like a lot of us are at-will employees. You could be doing great, and the next thing you know, there's a change and you're asked to leave, right? We're dependent on each other for a lot of things, right? Justin, you might be my SME at my job, and I depend on you day and night, and buddy, you could quit the next day. You won the lotto. So, so that whole you either quit, get hit by a bus, you got to plan for those contingencies. And sometimes you don't see it, but that's just one of them. That's what this was to me is, hey man, they just quit. So we have to figure out a way forward because they just quit. And there's no other.
I always refer to the, what if they get hit by a lottery ticket? That covers both of them.
That's a great angle. I love it because you hate to say that somebody could die, but yeah, get hit by a lottery ticket. That's fantastic.
Wow.
Struck by a lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've got time. We've got a couple more questions here. We've got a couple minutes. Next question from Eric. Do you use ProShip for B2C, e-com, DC, and/or stores, or also use ProShip for B2B, store replenishment, carriers? I think these questions are primarily for Sherry and Jeremy. Anything you guys want to speak to there?
We use it both ways, title companies and our borrowers. So like I said earlier, much smaller scale than Jeremy, but we do use it for both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same here. We're utilizing it for customer, but also some merchandise movements between stores, return to vendor type situations, and it's used for both nodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure Justin would add to that, say that we can do both, and we are definitely open to the conversation if you want to talk about how we can do both.
Exactly.
Yep. All right. We've got time for, I think, one more quick question here. How does ProShip help with shipping dangerous goods?
I
Justin,
want to give
you
a very
talk to that?
quick technical answer on this. Right. Earlier, I talked about the enterprise software stack. That should have all the information necessary to properly communicate with the carrier on shipping a dangerous good. That is a shipping software's primary job, is to help collect that information, package it in a way the carrier, the IATA, dangerous goods, 49 CFR, how they need that data, communicate it, produce the documents. Okay. We also partner with Label Master, which can also validate that you are putting the right amount of something in a particular overpack. So really, we're there to facilitate data communication, and if necessary, reach out to a partner to validate that you're not putting too many pounds of lithium ion in a single cardboard box.
Awesome. All right, well, we are out of time, so I'm just going to call out a few quick things. If you look around your screen, you'll see in the related content exclusive access to a brand new ProShip resource, a brochure all about ProShip choice and what kind of flexibility that the ProShip solution offers. So be sure to check that out. I want to thank our speakers, all of our attendees. You'll be getting an email with a copy of the recording and then a link to a survey so we know how we can take that next step with you. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today, and have a great day.